Before we start, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and leave a comment. Your support helps me bring you more powerful life stories that truly touch the heart. Thank you for being here. My dinner ended up in the trash while they burst out laughing. Nobody in the room expected how I would react. What happened next left everyone in complete silence. This is a true story, friends. Write where you're from and how old you are. Very interesting to know who's watching us. Enjoy listening. They laughed while throwing the meat into the garbage bin. That very piece I had spent the whole day working on, rubbing with garlic and lemon, just like my late wife Nina taught me. Whatever, Dad, Kevin smirked with lazy contempt. We ordered Japanese takeout. I stood there with an empty plate in my hands, fingers trembling, not from old age, but from something else, something cold. The laughter from the living room wouldn't stop. It hadn't stopped for a long time now. They didn't even notice when I stopped setting the table several weeks ago. They didn't care that I no longer joined them for dinner. I had become part of the furniture. Quiet, still, convenient to ignore. I carried the plate back to the kitchen. Each step felt like carrying a bag of cement on my shoulders. I didn't say a word and wouldn't. I washed that plate the way Nina taught me, with hot water, calmly, with steady hands. The aroma of roasted garlic still hung in the air like a memory. I cracked open the small window above the sink, letting in the last August breeze, dry and hot. The garden outside was still mine. They hadn't taken that away yet. A door slammed upstairs. One of the boys. Maybe Paul, maybe Alex. The older one is 17, the younger 15. They haven't looked me in the eye for many months now. Always on their phones, in their earbuds, as if living in other worlds. I dried my hands on the old towel, the same one with burn marks from that time Nina forgot to turn off the stove. She had laughed then. Battle scars. Bob. That's life. Nina would have found words for this evening, but Nina is gone. 5 years since I buried her. Only my silence remains. Their voices laughed in the hallway. I went upstairs. Heavy steps. I heard Laura, my daughter-in-law, once again joking about my cooking. Something about depressing cuisine from the past. Kevin, as usual, stayed quiet, just chuckled in response. Not quite laughter. Not quite agreement. Silence. That's also agreement, if you think about it. The room smelled of dust and old tobacco. The bed was made, as always. This was the only place in the house where I still felt like someone. I sat on the edge of the bed and picked up Nina's photo tucked into the mirror frame. Her smile was so warm, so real. You wouldn't have let this happen, I whispered. You would have told them. But she's not here. And I'm tired of talking to photographs. I stood up, walked to the nightstand, opened the drawer. There lay an envelope, thick, sealed since February. Those documents they never asked about, and I never offered. Tomorrow morning, before they wake up, I'll leave. Let them think I'm a ghost. Let them forget who the real owner of this house is. I haven't forgotten. I didn't sleep that night. Not from excitement, that had passed long ago. It was something else. A kind of calm that comes before a storm, or after a final decision. I sat by the window, watching the porch light flicker and fade. It had been doing that for several weeks. Kevin kept promising to fix it. Never did. At dawn, I dressed slowly. Gray trousers, white shirt, blue jacket, the one they didn't like. I combed my hair carefully, shaved clean like I was 20 again. Today I didn't want to be invisible. The house slept. Silence upstairs, in the kitchen, not a sound. I walked down the hallway. My suitcase was already packed. Documents, passport, keys they didn't know about, everything with me. At the entrance, I stopped. Food containers were scattered on the table again. Greasy bags, cups, everything covered in crumbs. My plate was gone. Probably thrown away. Maybe for the better, a clean slate, so to speak. I left a note on the refrigerator short, without resentment. Gone on business. Don't wait up. That was the last thing I signed in this house. Outside, it smelled of earth and approaching rain. My knees ached, but I didn't slow down. My old sedan waited by the curb, dented but faithful. I drove slowly past the bakery where they used to know my order, past the school where Kevin scraped his knee in 3rd grade. The neighborhood hadn't changed, only the people. The lawyer's office was in a brick building above a pharmacy. I had made an appointment with him 2 weeks after Nina's funeral but never showed up. Then Kevin lost his job. Laura needed to refresh the living room. And Kevin said, "Dad, come live with us until things settle down." So I came. 4 years ago. The secretary met me in the lobby. "Go ahead, Robert. Mr. Wilson is expecting you." He had aged. Or maybe I was only seeing it clearly now. "Good to see you," he said. "Did you bring the papers?" I silently handed over the envelope. He quickly opened it, scanned through. "Still in your name," he confirmed. "Your wife didn't add anyone." "They don't know," I said. He raised his eyebrows. "They think the house belongs to Kevin. Since they live there, run things. And I allowed it." I clasped my hands on my knees. "But permission isn't ownership." Wilson nodded. "Ready to reclaim it, sell it, transfer it back to yourself officially?" "Ready," I said. "Officially. Starting tomorrow, 30 days to vacate." "Want the notice to come from me?" "Yes," I answered. "Only that way." He paused for a moment, then nodded. "Are you sure?" I looked straight at him. They laughed while throwing away my food. "That's enough." He began typing. After the lawyer, I walked 2 blocks to the bank, closed the joint account Kevin had insisted we open for convenience, opened a new one in my name only, changed the beneficiary on the insurance, rewrote my will. I left nothing to chance. By noon, the sky had darkened. I stood in front of the courthouse building with a folder in my hands. Everything signed, stamped, official. They weren't expecting this. And that's probably the saddest part. For so many years I had let them believe they had rights to everything. They forgot I could still bite. And I was just getting started. I remember well the day I first moved in with them. Everyone was smiling. I still see how Laura touched my arm. "You'll always have a place here, Dad Bob." I believed her. Nina had been gone 6 months then. My house was too quiet. Kevin said, "Dad, come over, it'll be easier for everyone." I packed what I thought I needed, closed the door. The guest room was clean, fresh sheets, a new floor lamp, a leather chair at the foot of the bed. "Make yourself comfortable," Laura said. The boys carried boxes upstairs, laughed, pretended it was a celebration. Kevin opened wine. We sat at the table, remembered Nina. It seemed to me that grief, strangely enough, had returned my family to me. But comfort can turn sour. The room never became mine. The lamp disappeared after just a week. "I need it in the living room more," Laura said. The chair followed. "The boys want to hang out with friends." She shrugged. My space was shrinking. First they just moved things without asking. Then Laura started entering without knocking, or with a quick tap and straight in. "We're family, Bob, what's the problem?" I remember coming back from a walk once. She was going through my dresser. "These shirts need to go." In her hands was a flannel shirt, the last thing Nina gave me for New Year's. "That's from her," I said quietly. "You can't keep everything forever." She shrugged. "But I could." I took the shirt back and hung it up. She rolled her eyes and left. A week later I found it in the donation box. I took it back. Silently. It was the same with food. At first I cooked often, the way Nina taught me. Casseroles with thyme, fresh bread. I'd get up at 5 a.m. to have time. Pies. I'd roll pastry for half the day. Everyone praised it. "Dad the chef," Kevin would say, helping himself to seconds. But Laura's smile grew strained. "A bit heavy. Affects the waistline, of course." Then they started saying it more often, "Too much butter, of course." "The boys are used to lighter food. Maybe something simpler next time." And then one day Laura announced, "From now on, I'll do the cooking. You've done enough, Bob. Time for the young ones to take over." And the young ones ate from boxes. Pasta with sauce from jars. Frozen lasagna. Chinese delivery 3 times a week. The kitchen that once smelled of rosemary and garlic now reeked of grease and artificial additives. I offered to cook at least on Sundays. It's tradition, I said. Everything changes, Bob, she replied. Sunday is our family time. Our family time. And I, apparently, was no longer family. The boys stopped sitting with me at the table, carried their food upstairs, laughed somewhere in their rooms. Once I thought maybe they wanted company after all. I approached Paul's door. It was slightly open. Alex was showing something on his phone. Both were laughing. Hey guys, I said. Mind if I join you? They froze. The laughter disappeared immediately. We're busy, Grandpa, Paul said. Yeah, this is private, Alex muttered without even looking. Private. From me, their grandfather, the same one who built them a treehouse in the yard, who taught them card tricks, who never missed birthdays. I nodded, closed the door, never tried again. My life shrank to quiet corners. Morning coffee by the window while it grew cold as I watched neighbors live their lives. The Johnsons across the street have grandchildren visit every Sunday. Grandpa tells stories. The children listen with wide eyes. I wonder what it's like to be needed? During the day I did laundry that wasn't mine. Wanted to be useful. Laura's jeans that cost more than my entire pension. Kevin's shirts he couldn't be bothered to hang up. The boys' sports clothes, reminders of games I wasn't invited to. Dad, you shouldn't go, Kevin said about Paul's last game. There are crowds, stares. Better rest. Rest. As if I were feeble, not someone who worked at the plant for 40 years. Who never complained, who endured. Evenings were the worst. The house filled with their voices, their laughter, their life. And I sat behind the wall, listening. Sometimes I heard my name. Where's Grandpa? Asked one of Paul's friends once. Oh, he keeps to himself, Paul brushed off. He's getting old. Getting old, like a diagnosis. As if I had erased everything I used to be. At first, no one was cruel. Everything was small, but drop by drop, like stones in pockets. Walking became harder and harder. I mentioned once that I wanted to get a haircut at Marcus's. He'd been cutting my hair for 30 years. But he's downtown, Kevin replied. There's traffic. There's a cheaper place nearby. Cheaper. As if saving $3 was more important than the last connection to my past. I bought myself a watch, simple, old-fashioned, to replace the broken one. Left the receipt on the kitchen counter. Laura saw it. $60 for a watch, Bob? You have your phone. I don't have a smartphone. Don't need one. I asked to go to the science fair where Alex was presenting a project on electromagnets. Grandpa, you won't understand anyway, he laughed. These are complex things. Me, who ran all the electrical wiring in their apartment myself. Me, who built radios with Kevin. I taught them how circuits work. But now I apparently wouldn't understand. They thought I didn't notice anything, that age dulled hearing, sight, memory. But I noticed every sideways glance when I spoke, every sigh when I entered, every conversation that stopped when I appeared. I noticed how they made plans without me. We're going to the movies, Laura would say, already putting on her coat. We'll be back late. No invitation. Not even want to come with us? Just a quiet, no need. Not with us. Not your turn. Holidays became different. The first Christmas I tried to maintain Nina's traditions. Breakfast with her casserole, gift hunting, reading poems by the fireplace. We don't do that anymore, Laura said without looking up from her phone. The boys are older now, 15 and 17. Kevin and I observed all this while Nina was alive. But I stayed silent. I was learning. My voice became background noise to them. One evening, washing dishes, I saw my reflection in the black kitchen window. A face like a faded photograph, bleached by sun. Then I understood. I hadn't just moved into my son's house. I had gradually given them my entire life, and they took without gratitude, without questions. But still I told myself, they don't mean harm, they're just busy. Everything will work out. It didn't work out, it got worse. Laura started using my bathroom. The boys occupied ours, she'd say, coming out in my towel, head wrapped. Kevin started borrowing money from me. I'll pay you back, Dad, he'd whisper. Never did. After the third time, I started hiding my wallet under the mattress like a child hiding candy. The boys also rummaged through my room. I'd notice a book out of place, a drawer not closed properly. One day my father's old pocket knife disappeared. Alex, have you seen it? No, Grandpa, you probably lost it. Lost it, as if I were losing my mind. But worst of all was the laughter. Not with me, but at me. Yes, my hearing wasn't what it used to be, but I heard enough. Their jokes when they thought I couldn't hear. Grandpa's cologne is like paint stripper, Paul snorted, and everyone roared. Did you see him struggling with the TV remote? Laura giggled. Like a caveman with an iPhone. He asked me what it means to binge watch and chill, Alex added. And I couldn't stand it anymore. Kevin laughed with them. My son, whom I taught to ride a bike, throw a ball, be a man. He laughed at me like I was a joke. This happened on a Tuesday, though days had long since blurred into gray mush. I stood at the sink, rinsing the same cup I'd used morning, afternoon, and yesterday, because it was the only thing in the house that was still mine. And suddenly Laura's voice from the hallway, clear as a knife. I can't take it anymore. He makes the whole house smell like an old smoking room and mothballs. Even the boys notice. It's embarrassing when guests come over. Pause. Then that tired sigh, Kevin's. He's old, Laura. What do you want? I want him to at least try. Wash properly, use soap, air out his room. It's not that hard. I'll talk to him, Kevin promised. But we both knew he wouldn't. Don't bother. It's useless. They don't change at this age. At this age, as if I were no longer human, but a shadow. I held my hands under scalding water longer than necessary. The skin burned, but it kept the tears inside. I dried the cup, put it in the rack, and quietly went to my room. I sat on the edge of the bed, looked at the blanket. Nina had chosen it in the store 40 years ago. Dark blue with small golden stars. She said it was like the sky we danced under at the fair. My head was empty, then like an avalanche, thousands of small offenses. All those no's. Not like that, not there. Laura wrinkling her nose when I opened a jar of pickles. Paul waving his hand. He's wearing that cologne again. The same one Nina adored. Alex on the phone. Don't come over now. It smells like a morgue. And Kevin never once said, that's my father. You have no right to speak like that. I endured all of this. Told myself. It doesn't matter. I didn't live my life to get offended over trifles. But what I heard then was no longer a joke. It was a diagnosis. A verdict. I wasn't a guest. I was a burden, an outsider. I went downstairs late that evening for water. My throat was dry from words I never said. Laura was bustling in the pantry, reorganizing food. My coffee jars pushed to the farthest corner behind boxes of cereal, chips, all the things children eat when they don't care about taste. Bob, she said without looking, I organize things a bit here. Now everything makes sense. What we use goes in front. We. I nodded. What could I say, that I'd lived here longer than she and Kevin combined, that I had a right to at least my jar of coffee. I poured myself water. She watched me from the corner of her eye, as if afraid I'd disturb her order. Also, Bob, about the bathroom. Maybe you could start using the exhaust fan more often? And your towels. They're beyond help. I put out new ones, gray. Throw those old ones away. My towels. A wedding gift. Yes, old. Yes, worn in places, but clean. And they still smelled of Nina's soap. She wanted me to throw them away because they didn't match the decor. Think about it, she said. I left silently. That night I lay staring at the ceiling. What had become of my life? I had become a ghost, a shadow that exists but isn't seen, that people step over, that they tolerate. They had taken my kitchen, my rhythm, my dignity, and now my right to smell the way I wanted, live, cook, drink coffee where it was convenient for me. I opened the nightstand drawer, took out the envelope with documents. The paper was thick, substantial. And there was my name, only mine. They could wipe their feet on me, ignore me, mock me, but one thing they couldn't change: I was the owner. I remembered Nina saying, "You're too patient, Bob. People start thinking that's permission." I had been patient for 4 years, and they decided that was permission to disappear. The supermarket had always been my kingdom, the last place where I felt like myself. I knew it like the back of my hand. Where the good tomatoes were, where the butcher saved the best cuts, where coffee was cheapest if you ground it fresh. Shopping for groceries was my responsibility. Even before Nina died, I handled the shopping. She'd write lists neatly with flourishes, and I'd go and execute them. It wasn't just about food. It was a way to prove, I'm still needed, I can still take care. So when Laura handed me a list that Saturday morning, I didn't argue. Put on my coat, the same one Nina bought me 10 years ago. Laura called it shabby. The car, as always, was with the boys. Kevin was busy. Just stick to the list, Laura tossed without looking up from her phone. No improvising. Improvising, as if choosing a ripe melon was jazz. The list was painfully specific. Bread, whole grain only, organic brand. Milk, 2%, organic, small bottle. Apples, Honeycrisp only, 6 pieces, no bruises. I walked slowly. My back ached by the 3rd aisle, knees by the 5th. But I found everything, though the apples were more expensive than necessary. The milk was regular, just with an eco-label for those with extra money. At checkout, I counted out cash. Didn't trust the card terminals. The cashier, a boy about 18, was openly irritated. The man behind me in line muttered, "These old folks always slow things down." I pretended not to hear. But my hands shook. The walk home took longer than usual. Heavy bags. Had to stop twice. Sit on a bench. Cars passed by. People lived at their own pace. And here I was with 2 grocery bags and a whole life on my back. When I got home, they were all in the kitchen. Laura on the phone, Paul and Alex at the table eating chips straight from the bag, crumbs all over the table. Kevin on his tablet. No one even glanced up. Finally Laura said, "I was starting to think you got lost." I set down the bags. My hands were shaking. No one helped. "Did you get the right bread?" Laura asked, peering in. She pulled it out, looked at it like examining evidence. "This isn't right, Bob. I wrote organic brand, and this is grain gift." "They didn't have that," I said. "This is the same thing. Same ingredients, same price." "No, Bob, this isn't right. The boys don't like this texture." Paul picked up the loaf, grimaced. "Ugh. This cardboard again." "Nobody wants to eat cardboard," Alex added and burst out laughing. Kevin looked up. "Dad, you need to be more careful. Laura's trying here." More careful, as if I were a child. I looked at this bread. An ordinary loaf. In my youth it would have cost pennies. Now almost $20. And still not right. Words gathered in my throat, clenched like a cork. But I swallowed painfully. "I'll try harder next time," I squeezed out. "Don't bother," Laura shrugged. "Kevin will stop by himself. Maybe it's better if we do the shopping ourselves." Just like that, they took away the last thing I could do for them. That same evening I tried once more. Made soup chicken, the way Nina taught me. With real broth, not from cubes, with noodles I rolled by hand all day. Carrots cut fine and neat. While they were scattered around doing whatever, I labored in the kitchen. The house filled with aroma, warm, homey. I set the table, ladled out portions. For the first time in many days, I felt needed. Paul took one sip and immediately pushed it away. Too salty. Alex didn't even try it. "I don't eat soup anyway." Very traditional, Laura smiled with that same strained expression. "But we ordered pizza. The boys need more than just soup." Kevin said nothing, just took out his phone, started scrolling. I sat with a bowl full of soup. Soup that wasn't salty. I had tasted it, it was perfect. And I watched them eat pizza from boxes and laugh at something on their phones. They sat with their backs to me. I was furniture. And then, in the silence, without flash, without scream, I understood. They wanted me gone. So be it. Just not the way they thought. The next morning I put on my best suit, the same dark gray one I wore to Nina's funeral. Now it hung a bit loose, my body had shrunk over the years, but I still looked dignified in it. Combed my hair neatly, shaved clean, looked in the mirror and saw not an old man, not furniture, but a man with business to attend to. I walked to the lawyer confidently. Each step resonated inside like a returned right. Wilson was surprised I was so early, but looking at my face, quickly cleared all other business aside. Robert, come in. How can I help you? I placed the documents on the table. I want them to move out. He skimmed the papers, then looked at me. This is your house. Everything's clear. You have the right. I know, I nodded, and I want to exercise that right. Officially. Notice. 30 days. He nodded slowly. We'll process everything now. While he typed, I thought about the last 4 years. How they had nibbled me away piece by piece until only a shadow remained. I endured everything because the alternative, loneliness, seemed scarier. But essentially I was already alone. Alone in a house full of people who looked through me. When the papers were ready, I signed them with a steady hand. After that, I went to the bank. The girl behind the counter smiled at first, but when she heard I wanted to remove my son from all accounts, she grew cold. This is a serious step, Robert. Are you sure? I'm 72, I said. In life, I haven't been sure about much. But about this, absolutely. She quickly processed everything. The account Kevin and I had opened for emergencies was closed. All payments transferred to my new one. Kevin could no longer access it. Anything else? She asked. I want to open a safety deposit box. I put the original property deed and will there, rewritten right there in a separate room. Kevin was removed from beneficiaries. I put the key on my keychain next to the one for the old lock, the same one they thought I had lost long ago. I walked home and for the first time in a long while felt lighter. The sun was shining, birds were singing, and I noticed it. On the neighboring lot, Mrs. Patterson was watering roses. She saw me. Good afternoon, Robert. Getting better by the minute, I replied. And I wasn't lying. At home, they were all in the living room. The TV blared some nonsense. I stood in the doorway and looked at them. Kevin sprawled in my chair. Laura at her laptop. The boys at their gaming console. My grandsons. My family, who no longer needed me. No one noticed I was standing there. I went to my room, took out a yellow notebook. On the first page I wrote what to do when they moved out. Paint the kitchen yellow, like Nina wanted. Return the chair to the living room. Make a roast and eat it at the table. Play music loud. Walk around the house without asking permission to exist. Live. The list grew, small things, but each line like a breath of air. At dinner, pizza again. They chattered over me, joked, made weekend plans. Not a word about me. Laura suddenly said aloud, "We need to buy air fresheners. The hallway smells like old man again." Good idea, Kevin nodded. Didn't even glance at me. And I smiled, because I knew what they didn't. In 30 days this house would smell of coffee and roses and memories of Nina. But I didn't wait a month. That would have been too gentle. They needed to feel what I had felt. Surprise. The overturning realization. Ground disappearing under your feet. I waited 3 more days. 3 days when they, as usual, ignored me. Laughed. Lived as if I weren't there. 3 days to make sure I was doing the right thing. And then came that evening. I made roast again. Good piece of meat, had been saving for weeks. Garlic, lemon, rosemary from the garden bed. The way Nina taught me. Started cooking at noon. Every half hour I basted it with juices. The house filled with aroma, like before. Like it was when we lived together. I set the table. Good china, wedding set that Laura had packed in boxes but I saved. Real silverware polished to shine. Even lit candles. Kevin entered first. "What's all this?" His voice flat, almost lazy. "Sunday dinner," I said, like before. Laura appeared, looked at the table and laughed. Bob, we said this morning we ordered Chinese. She hadn't said that. We hadn't talked in 2 days. The only thing she said was about the bathroom exhaust fan again. The boys don't eat roast, she continued. You know that. I didn't know. They were never given a chance to try. Paul entered, wrinkled his nose. Smells like a morgue. Zombie food, Alex chimed in. Grandpa decided to raise the dead. They laughed. All of them, even Kevin. Light, almost polite chuckling. But I saw it. I watched them throw everything away. Meat, potatoes, carrots, straight into the garbage bin. Not leftovers for tomorrow. Everything, there, with apple cores and coffee filters. Get extra spring rolls, Kevin called out. And don't forget the soup. No one even looked in my direction. I stood holding the serving dish, the same one Nina and I received as a wedding gift. Watched my family eat from boxes and laugh at something on their phones. They sat with their backs to me. I was furniture. And then, in silence, without flash, without scream, I understood, they wanted me gone. So be it. Just not the way they thought. I washed the dish, dried it, put it away, then went upstairs, took out the notice prepared by Wilson. Signed it. My hand didn't shake. Tomorrow they would learn what it means to be unwanted in a house they consider their own. Only it's mine. But I didn't give them the notice the next day. I waited until Friday. Wanted them to relax, to feel safe, to think I was empty space. And then Friday was gray and damp, the kind that makes bones ache. I dressed carefully, the same suit, freshly pressed. Wanted to look not like an old man, but like an owner, a man, a proprietor. Everyone was home. Laura worked remote. The boys had a short day. Kevin took the day off, as he called it, lounged around all day watching sports on his phone. I entered the living room. Laura at her laptop. Boys at their game. Kevin sprawled in my old chair, the same one they dragged from the bedroom. As soon as I stopped arguing, I placed the folder on the table, right between soda cans and empty wrappers. What's this? Kevin muttered without looking up from the screen. Read it, I said. My tone was different. They felt it. Everyone looked up. Really looked. For the first time in a long while, they saw me. Kevin took the folder. Opened it. His face paled. Dad, what is this? Laura snatched the papers. Started reading. Eviction notice? Are you out of your mind? No, Laura, I said calmly. On the contrary, I haven't been this clear-headed in a long time. The boys froze. This is a joke, Paul said. Grandpa, you're kidding. I don't look like I'm kidding. I looked at them. They looked away. Alex began. This is our home. No, I replied. This is my house. Whose name is on the deed? Mine. You lived here because I allowed it. I don't want to anymore. Laura jumped up. This is insane. We're family. Family, I repeated, as if tasting the word. Family doesn't throw your food in the trash. Family doesn't laugh behind your back. Doesn't pretend you don't exist. Dad, please. Kevin also stood. Let's talk. We talked for 4 years. Or rather, you were silent or laughed. I heard everything. Every time you thought I was deaf, that I didn't understand. I heard. So here it is, 30 days. Find housing. Alex smirked, but uncertainly. This is some kind of show. Look at my face, I said. Think I'm joking? He looked. The smile disappeared. Where are we supposed to go? Laura's voice became high, breaking. We have school, work. We can't just. That's no longer my concern, I replied. Should have thought about it earlier, when you tried to erase me from this family. Dad, Kevin whined, you came to us yourself. You couldn't manage alone. I came because you asked, because I wanted to be with family. You used me like a free boarding house. But I gave you nothing. The house is mine. Want to check? Papers are in the registry. He pulled out his phone, started checking something. In a minute his face turned gray. It's still in your name, he whispered. Always was, I confirmed. But we paid, Laura choked. Paid utilities, groceries. And didn't I thank you for that? I asked. You paid less than market rent. I know that. You called it contributing to common expenses. Well, consider the rent finished. Silence fell. Real silence, without excuses, without giggling. I turned, walked toward the stairs, but stopped. Oh yes, Kevin, I removed you from the bank account, so your emergency expenses are no longer my problems. Dad, quietly. I was already going up. Behind me I heard Laura scream. I told you we should have put everything in writing. Don't yell, Kevin snapped. Don't order me around. You ruined everything. Shut up. This is your fault. And then, he's not my father anymore, Paul said quietly. He's just some old man from the room upstairs. On the stairs I stopped. Gripped the railing with my hand. Old man. Just an old man. That's who I was in their eyes. I didn't turn around, went up, closed the door behind me. Outside it started to rain, gray, cold. And in my room I took out the photo album. Nina's. Family photos. Turned page after page. Kevin as a baby. Kevin with a backpack. Kevin at graduation. Kevin at the altar. Me beside him. Hand on his shoulder. We're smiling. Happy, full of hope. When did it all go wrong? When did I start getting in their way? There was a knock at the door. Dad. Kevin's voice. Can I come in? It's my house. For now, 30 more days. He came in, sat on the edge of the bed. First time in many months. Dad, please think about it. We have children, work, school. And what am I? I uprooted my life for you two. But you wanted to yourself. I wanted family, but got coldness and mockery. He fell silent. We didn't mean to, but it happened. Just like that. Let's start over. Where? In that 2-bedroom you're looking at now? With 2 bedrooms for 4 people. With rent you can barely afford? Mrs. Patterson told me. You've been looking at her nephew's place. He looked away. It's temporary. Until we find something better. I don't care. That's no longer my concern. I'm your son, he said. Exactly. And that makes it hurt even more. I expected better from you. From a stranger, it wouldn't hurt so much. But you knew how you shouldn't treat people, and you allowed it anyway. He left without closing the door. I got up, went over, closed it myself. The remaining 30 days became a symphony of slamming doors and whispered voices behind my back. I became truly invisible, only now by my own choice. A ghost. A shadow that reminded them, time is running out. Laura started with threats. Would approach me in the kitchen, hiss through her teeth. This is senile dementia. I'll find a lawyer. This is a violation of rights. You'll regret this, Robert. Sue me, I replied calmly. Spend your last savings on lawyers who'll tell you the same thing as mine. I have every right. Then came the tears. Real ones, with snot at dinner. You're ruining my children's lives, my boys' lives. Your boys haven't said one kind word to me in 2 years, I noted. They won't be worse off without me. They've been without me for a long time. Paul tried to play tough, stood close, loomed over me, looked down. You're making a mistake, old man. The mistake was thinking you were worth attention, I replied without looking away. Alex went a different route, brought me tea in the mornings. Suddenly started asking how I felt. Remember how you taught me to fish, Grandpa? I do, I nodded. And I remember how you said I smelled like death. The next day there was no tea. Kevin behaved worst of all because he did nothing. Just disappeared. Came home late. Left early. No words. No requests. The same silence as before. Only now it sounded different. Empty. In the 3rd week they started packing. Boxes in corners. Bags in the hallway. Slowly but surely they were getting ready to leave. I watched the house empty. Laura's weights she never used but took up half the garage. The boys' gaming console with cables stretched across the entire living room. Kevin's work papers that were everywhere. Kitchen, stairs, even on my bookshelf. The house began to breathe. Light broke into corners. The air became different. Smelled not of grease and garbage, but of nothing. Of freedom. I started restoring order. Put the coffee maker back in its familiar place. Returned the chair to the living room, hung Nina's photo in the hallway. The same one Laura called morbid. "You have no right. We still live here," she screamed. "You're staying overnight here, Laura. The house stopped being yours when you threw away my dinner." She left, slamming the door, yelling at someone on the phone. I didn't listen. I didn't care. 5 days before they left, Kevin tried to talk again. Late evening, came to the bedroom. He looked tired. "Dad, I apologize for everything, for how we treated you. I was waiting. You were right. We really did behave like selfish people. We thought you'd cope. We forgot you're human." "I remember," I said. "But can we fix everything?" "Where? In that rental apartment with 2 rooms for 4 people? Where you'll live in debt." He looked away. "It's temporary, until we find something better." "That's no longer my business, Kevin. I'm still your son." "Exactly. And that's what hurts most of all. From a stranger it's easier to forgive." He left without slamming the door. The last day was quiet. September, warm and golden. I woke early, made coffee, sat by the window and watched the sunrise. The silence in the house was different, not crushing when you're ignored, but light, free. By noon they had left. Kevin carried the last boxes. Laura got in the car, slammed the door. The boys didn't even glance in my direction. No goodbye, no look, no word. I stood at the window, watched them drive away. Mrs. Patterson was fussing with her roses, pretending not to watch, but glanced, of course. I waved. She waved back. "Everything all right, Robert?" "Couldn't be better," I replied. And this time for real. I spent the rest of the day on myself alone. Rearranged furniture the way Nina and I did 40 years ago. Opened all the windows. Let the fresh September air blow out the remnants of their smells, words, and presence. For dinner I made myself a simple omelette. Ate at the table from good china with a glass of wine. No boxes, grease stains, phone conversations during meals. Just silence and me. And in the evening I settled in my chair in the living room, the same one that had been gathering dust in the garage. Turned on the table lamp. Opened a book. No TV, no giggling, no eternal, "Don't bother us." Just lines and the ticking of old clocks, given to Nina and me for our wedding. At 10 in the evening I went upstairs, not sneaking, not apologizing, not hiding. Just calmly, like a person whose home had not been taken away anymore. On the nightstand stood Nina's photo. I looked into her face. Tired, kind, alive, dear. "I did it, Nina." The room was silent, but not the kind that sounds when you're ignored, but the kind that comes when everything is finally in its place. A month passed. The house found new rhythms. Morning coffee on the porch. Newspaper on paper, not on screen. I bought groceries myself, chose the apples I wanted, not what I was ordered to get. Cooked as I wanted and ate like a human being. On Tuesdays Mrs. Patterson started visiting, brought baked goods. We drank tea, talked about weather, the past, neighbors. Ordinary, simple, real communication. The mailman George started lingering. "How are you, Robert?" "Good, thank you." "Shows in your face," he smiled. I was no longer the old man upstairs. I was Robert again, Nina's husband, owner of the house. One day Kevin called. Voice timid. "Dad, it's me. I'm listening." We thought, well, maybe for the holidays we could visit? "The boys miss you." The boys who never wrote, called, or visited. "No, Kevin. But you're alone." "I'm alone. But not lonely. I was lonely when I lived with you." He was quiet. "Will you forgive us?" "I already have. That's for my peace, not yours. But forgiveness isn't amnesia, and it's not an invitation to let you break me again." "So that's it." "No, Kevin. It's been over for a long time. I just drew the line. I hung up without anger, without triumph. Just calmly. Christmas came. I put up a small tree, exactly the kind Nina wanted. We never bought one. Kevin always insisted on a huge one. But I went and bought the one she would have liked. Made baked ham, invited Mrs. Patterson with her nephew and his wife. We played cards, laughed, not at someone, but together. And for the first time in many years, the holiday was truly festive. In January, a letter came from Laura. Typed. Soulless. Robert. The boys ask about you. We all understand we behaved wrong. The apartment is cramped. The boys share one room. Kevin has it hard at work. It's not easy for us. You always taught that family comes first. We hope you remember. Let us come back. The house is shared after all. Respectfully, Laura. Shared. The same house where they threw my food in the trash, where they laughed at me like a ghost, where I couldn't leave a jar of coffee on the counter. I didn't answer, because silence is also an answer. Spring came. The roses in the garden, the ones Nina planted, bloomed. Every day I went out to them, watered, tended, talked. They smelled the way her neck used to smell when she leaned over me with a cup of tea. On the day I was pruning bushes, a car pulled up. Kevin got out alone. Older. Grayer. Hello, Dad. Kevin. Beautiful roses. Your mother planted them. I remember. We stood like that, he at the gate, I in the garden. As if there weren't 5 yards between us, but 5 years. Can I come in? No. He nodded. Laura and I are divorcing. I wasn't surprised. When you get used to abandoning people, it's easy to get used to being abandoned yourself. Sorry to hear it. The boys blame me for everything. For you, for the house. They're not children anymore, Kevin. They made their choice, like you did. He stood a while longer, then left. I stayed in the garden among the roses, among memories, among the life I was now building anew. A year has passed since I threw them out. Full circle. Season by season. And I wake not to screaming, not to laughter over my head, not to doors slamming in my back, but to silence. Clean. Kind. I live my own life in my own house. Recently I made that roast again, the same one with lemon and garlic. Invited Mrs. Patterson, George and his wife. We ate from good china with silver I polished myself. They asked for seconds. Conversation flowed easily, with jokes, without heaviness. After dinner George's wife said, Robert, you've become so calm, so bright. You know why? I smiled. Because I realized respect isn't served on a platter. You have to take it. And I took it. She nodded. Maybe she understood. Later, when the guests left, I sat with a cup of tea, took the album. There was Nina's photo. In this chair, in this room. She looked into the lens, and I at her. I returned Nina both the house and myself. The room was quiet, but in that silence I almost heard her voice. I knew, Bob. I always knew you could do it. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions in the comments. To listen to the next story, click the window on the left. Thank you for listening to the story until the end. Subscribe to the channel and share this video with your friends and loved ones. It motivates us to keep working on new stories every day. Don't miss the next amazing story that's about to appear on your screen. We're very grateful to have you with us. See you soon.